home, I'd just like to recall that there was a tragedy at the Quebec Mosque. So we feel that it's very important to retain these provisions. And I'll have an opportunity to speak in greater depth about this after question period. Thank you very much. The honourable member will have 12 minutes after question period to continue his remarks.
The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will meet provincial premiers, including the Premier of Quebec. It'll be his opportunity to explain what his problem is with Quebec. The Liberal Party is the party of old fights. Why invent new ones? In 3 years, the Liberals have reduced their health care transfers. They made concessions on supply management and are refusing to compensate our farmers. And Trudeau wants to override our consumer protection laws and is giving contracts to Germany, to Quebec. He will have to explain himself on immigration as well. What is his problem with Quebec? The problem for us is not just the Prime Minister, but Canada as a whole. The honourable member for Laval-les-Îles. Mr. Speaker, 30 years ago, on December 7, 1998, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake almost completely destroyed the city of Spitak in Armenia and caused extensive damage to 300 communities. The earthquake killed 25,000 people, injured tens of thousands, and left more than 500,000 people homeless. Many countries provided assistance to Armenia, and today I especially want to celebrate and pay tribute to Canada, the Red Cross, Canadians of Armenian descent, the Canadian citizens and provinces that generously sent medical supplies and humanitarian assistance to the victims of the disaster. I also want to pay tribute to the Canadian Armed Forces for organizing an airlift to send aid to Armenia. This is what friendship between peoples is all about. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Barrie Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, Christmas is a time to spend with family and friends and reflect on the year that has passed. While most will spend time with their families, there are hundreds of volunteers who will spend it tending to the less fortunate across our community and country. In Barrie Innisfil, I witnessed that kindness that knits our communities together. There are dozens of organizations that put presents under trees and meals on tables this time of year. Today I'm reminded of the Barrie and District Christmas Cheer Society, Pastor Howard and Beulah Courtney of the Innisfil Food Bank, the Salvation Army Kettle Campaign, the Cram a Ram campaign sponsored by the folks at 400 Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and the South Simcoe Police Stuff a Command Post Toy Drive. Mr. Speaker, that's just scratching the surface. I'd like to take this time to say thank you to those who give of their time this holiday season and put community before themselves. Thank you for showing us what Christmas is all about. For my wife Leanne, children Jeff, Court, Matt, and Mitch, have a Merry Christmas and a happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year.
Honourable member for Surrey Centre.
Today marks 63 years since the death of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, one of India's greatest statesmen. Dr. Ambedkar served as the country's first law and justice minister after independence in 1947 and was one of the principal authors of India's constitution as he chaired the Constitution Drafting Committee. Dr. Ambedkar held a doctorate in economics and was thus tasked with creating the Reserve Bank of India. In 1990, he posthumously received India's highest civilian honor, the Bharat Ratna, becoming one of fewer than 50 people to ever have received it. However, above all, Dr. Ambedkar was a well-known socio-political reformer who campaigned tirelessly for women's rights and against social discrimination towards the untouchables. In partnership with the Ambedkar International Social Reform Organization, I'm hosting a reception today to mark the anniversary of his death. Members from ISRO are with us today in the House, and I want to thank them for all their charitable works that they do both here and in India to continue to promote the incredible legacy of social equality and justice that Dr. Ambedkar left behind. Thank you. Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, on this somber day of remembrance for the 14 women killed on December 6, 1989, just because they were women. We honor their memories as we work towards a world without gender violence or discrimination. Today, as we remember, let us renew our resolve to give all girls and women a world without fear, a future full of promise and possibilities. Today, we remember Genevieve Bergeron, 21, Alain Cogan, 23, Natalie Coteau, 23, Barbara Deneau, 22, Anne-Marie Edward, 21, Maud Havernick, 29, Barbara Klishnik-Vedovich, 31, Maryse Lagagne, 25, Maryse Leclerc, 23, Anne-Marie Lemay, 22, Sonia Pelche, 23, Michelle Richard, 21, Anne St. Arnaud, 23, and Annie Turcotte, 21. Today and every day, we remember.
Honourable Member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to recognize another tragedy in our history. 100 years ago, the Spanish influenza swept across the world. It was especially devastating to the people of Labrador. The Inuit communities of Sandwich Bay, like Melville, Hebron, and Okak, were left disseminated by the pandemic. It took months for news of the disaster to reach the Newfoundland government, and the response of the colonial secretary of the day was to send a telegram asking if any white settlers had died. After hearing the horrible details, the months of suffering and hardship, no statement was ever made in the legislature to acknowledge the death and the impact of the tragedy on the people of Labrador. I'd like to acknowledge former CBC broadcaster and Newfoundland and Labrador author Anne Budgell on her new book detailing the Spanish influenza in Labrador. It is important on our road to reconciliation to acknowledge our failures and commit ourselves to learning from our history.
The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak at the continued persecution of Afghanistan's indigenous people, the Hazaras. Since being forcefully displaced from their ancestral lands in the 18th century, the Hazaras have been the victims of many terrible crimes. This November alone, scores of innocent Hazaras were butchered across Afghanistan's central provinces, with entire villages razed to the ground. Many Hazaras live among us in Canada. Ottawa's Yasir Mirzad, a former translator with our Canadian forces, lost his father this March in a targeted attack in Kabul. London's, Ontario's late Dr. Dolat Abadi was an author who tirelessly advocated for the human rights of his people. Today, Hazara Canadians from across the country are present in the House, imploring Canadians to hear their cries. 158 Canadian soldiers paid the ultimate sacrifice in Afghanistan. We owe it to our fallen heroes to ensure that the ideals of freedom and justice that they fought and died for are realized for all Afghans. And the government must ensure that aid dollars sent to Afghanistan are associated with firm expectations about human rights. Canada must stand with the Hazaras and with all vulnerable minorities. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday was International Volunteer Day, and today I'm delighted to celebrate the work of Crossroads International, recognizing their tremendous volunteers, especially Canadians, who work around the world to alleviate poverty and inequality, particularly among women and girls. Actif depuis 60 ans, Carrefour International lead a
Around for 60 years, Carrefour International brings together volunteers and local partners who work for human rights, their security, and the economic success of thousands of women and girls.
drive change, support the world's most vulnerable, and have a lasting impact that produces tangible results among the world's poorest. Que ce soit en assurant la
From ensuring food security in Senegal to helping young women in Ghana tell their stories. The work of Carrefour International and its volunteers deserves to be recognized.
of making a difference.
The Honourable Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand today to recognize Angie McNeely, an outstanding individual in my riding of Kingston and the Islands. History was made on Friday when she was sworn in as Kingston's 17th and first female Chief of Police. Mr. Speaker, when Chief McNeely started her career in 1985, she was just one of 4 women on the Kingston Police Force. Rising through the ranks, she quickly defined herself as an asset to making our community safer through her work. In fact, Chief McNeely received many commendations earlier in her career for her efforts in investigations involving sexual assault and child abuse. She has been with the Kingston Police Force since 1985 and has served as Deputy Chief since 2011. After 33 years on the force, Chief McNeely is ready for this new challenge, and it was an honor to be present at the change of command ceremony last week when she was officially sworn in. We have a great police force in Kingston, and I know Chief McNeely will only build on the current achievements and make our community safer. Congrats, Chief. Bravo.
Mr. Speaker, last summer, the Liberals imposed a new restrictive, ideologically values test as part of the Canada Summer Jobs program. If you didn't attest that you agreed with Liberal ideology, you did not get federal funding. Canadians, legal experts, and the media were outraged and reacted overwhelmingly. Discriminating against Canadians in this way was wrong and mean-spirited. Hear, hear. The Charter of Rights guarantees us protection from this type of discrimination. The Liberals refused to listen and cut off many worthy charitable organizations. Conservatives pushed back and introduced a motion that would have allowed non-political, non-activist groups to receive funding without discrimination. The Prime Minister forced his MPs to oppose that motion. The Prime Minister just announced that what he did was wrong and the values test will be removed. Is this announcement because next year is an election year? Canadians now realize that this Liberal government cannot be trusted to protect their fundamental rights and freedoms.
The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, thanks to Khaled Khalili's initiative, which mobilized many stakeholders, we experienced a magical and wonderful event in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu. It was the first Christmas parade, and it was without doubt an exceptional success. Thank you to the volunteers and participants without whom this fabulous event would not have been put on. The magical parade amazed young and old alike by bringing the holiday spirit to our dynamic downtown. This time of year is a time for gatherings, sharing, and mutual aid, and is synonymous with solidarity. As December 5 is International Volunteer Day, I will conclude by highlighting the contribution of those who are committed to making our community a better place. A special thank you to the volunteers of Operation Red Nose. For the 35th year, this ride-sharing service made sure people get home safely. Happy holidays and safe holidays to all.
Member for Parkdale High Park.
Mr. Speaker, like many in this chamber, I'm a parent, and I try diligently to read to my two young sons, Zakir and Nitin, whenever possible. But I'll confess that it is sometimes difficult to inculcate a love of books in young South Asian kids when they don't see themselves reflected in the novels around them. You can imagine my delight, Mr. Speaker, when I stumbled upon a book by Jodi Nyasha Warner about a strong, brave black woman who dared to fight against racial segregation in Nova Scotia in the 1940s. A black woman who refused to give up her seat in the whites-only section of a theater. In Viola Desmond Won't Be Budged, suddenly my kids could see a fellow racialized person not being stereotyped, but being championed for her courage in fighting against injustice. Last week, I was more proud than ever to share with my two boys two crisp new $10 bills adorned with the image of none other than Viola Desmond herself. Going forward, what's important, Mr. Speaker, is that Canadians don't need to consult the bookshelf to learn about this human rights champion who will be carrying Viola and her message about the struggle for equality with us wherever we go.
The honourable member for Fort Hills.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday we learned just how little this Prime Minister thinks of Canadians who are actually going to have to pay his carbon tax. Saskatchewan is taking the Liberals to court to fight against the carbon tax, and yet the Prime Minister said any citizens group who represents taxpayers should not get intervener status. Wow. So that means Canadians who have to drive to work, heat their homes, should not have a say in the Liberal carbon tax scheme. Wow. But you know who does? The David Suzuki Foundation, what? Environmental Defense, radical environmental groups who get foreign funding to fight against Canada's oil and gas industry. Wow. They will get intervener status, but hardworking Canadians will not. Mr. Speaker, this is absolutely ridiculous. Shameful. But it shouldn't be a surprise. This Prime Minister has made it his goal to phase out Alberta's oil and gas industry. And according to the Liberals, everything is going to plan. But we will not stand for it. Canadians understand the carbon tax will kill jobs and ruin our economy.
The honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's the most wonderful time of the year in my community of Kitchener Centre. For over 2 decades, residents of the City of Kitchener have come together in the heart of our community to celebrate the spirit of Christmas and the holiday season. The annual Christkindl Market celebrates Kitchener's German heritage and the very best of German cuisine, drink, arts, crafts, and holiday cheer. Dozens of festive outdoor huts and food stands line our main street, treating residents and tourists to the sights and smells of the holiday season. Wow. Ring in your holidays with Christmas choirs, dance groups, live nativity scenes, and a candlelight procession, and help bring our community to life as we welcome 40,000 visitors from across North America. My staff and I invite you all to join us this year until December the 9th to take part in this wonderful holiday tradition in the largest and oldest German community in the country. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, in early October, IPCC experts released an alarming report on the need to act now to save the environment. According to the report, it's not too late, but we have to act now. Another study concluded that if all countries did what Canada did, the planet's temperature would rise by 5 degrees Celsius. Yet the Liberals continue to focus on the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion with the aim of tripling capacity and doing that with their own money. And the Conservatives only want to revive Energy East, which is just as bad for the environment. Fortunately, not everything is as dark as the sterile debates in this House. I congratulate the thousands of Quebecers who marched in early November for the Planète au Parlement. More than 1,000 people marched, and I promised these people that if the government did not listen to them, as they spoke on behalf of our planet, I would carry their message into the House. The government clearly has not heard this urgent message to save the planet, so I ask the Conservatives and Liberals to drop their ideology and finally do what it takes to save our only planet.
Today marks the 29th anniversary of the horrific murder of 14 women at l'École Polytechnique de Montréal. In honor of them, we take a moment to pause and to remember the lives that they lived, the dreams that they held, and the future that was robbed from them. We stand with their loved ones and their communities as we remember them. They were sisters, they were daughters, they were mothers, and they were friends. Sadly, 29 years later, violence against women and girls still persists. As legislators and leaders in our country, it is incumbent upon all of us to work together to create a Canada where justice for victims is rightly served and violence against women and girls has no place. As men and women in this House, as role models in our communities, let us commit to taking a stand against violence and for equality. Let us work together to build a society where violence has no place. We remember them.
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this date, 29 years ago, there was a serious event of gratuitous violence against women. I remember December 6, 1989, as if it was yesterday. It was snowing, and I was working at the family business. I remember that when the news of a shooter at the Polytechnique came out in the media, my heart stopped because some of my employees were students at the Polytechnique at that time. 14 women lost their lives in this misogynistic attack. 14 young women who had their whole lives ahead of them and who, in an instant, died simply because they were women. Now that I'm a mother, I better understand the void that the loss of these 14 brilliant women left in the lives of their loved ones. When I think of the massacre at the Polytechnique, I cannot imagine that anyone would want to take the lives of young women simply because they're women. This gratuitous gender-based violence must not happen again. Thank you.
Suite aux discussions entre le représentant de...
Following conversations among all parties, there is unanimous consent to have a moment of silence. I would invite all members to stand and observe a moment's silence in the memory of the tragic events 29 years ago at the Montreal Polytechnique.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Questions oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to add my voice to the wonderful tributes that were made today in this House commemorating the lives lost during the tragedy that we're remembering today. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's failure when it comes to the energy sector has become a full-blown crisis. Thousands of people in their communities are being impacted, and news of the latest layoffs appear almost daily. And yet this Prime Minister had to be shamed into even talking about this crisis with the Premiers tomorrow. It's like he wishes this problem would just go away and solve itself. Why is it that the Premiers had to resort to threats before this Prime Minister would even agree to discuss the crisis facing our energy sector?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we have looked into ways to create growth in all industries all across the country. Discussions begin with diversifying trade, competitiveness, and how the efforts to address climate change and clean energy will stimulate growth. When it comes to the oil patch and the impact of lower prices, that is of concern too. We're concerned about the jobs in that industry. We will always care about those things, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the impacts of low oil prices are well understood. It's having a devastating effect on the hardworking people in the energy sector. But it's the reason why there's a low price for Canadian oil, and the impacts of that are caused by this Liberal government's policies. But it's not just trying to block premiers talking about the energy crisis on the agenda. This Liberal government is trying to block citizens groups representing taxpayers who are trying to have their voices heard on the carbon tax during the court case. But they're allowing groups funded by foreign entities like the David Suzuki Foundation and the Environmental Defense. If the Prime Minister is so confident in the merits of his tax, why is he blocking grassroots organizations from funding it?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the situation that we are facing in Alberta and Saskatchewan and overall general in the energy sector is a serious concern. And we are moving forward in supporting the energy sector by giving them the accelerated capital allowance write-offs. We are moving forward on building the pipeline capacity, and Bridge Line 3 that we approved will come into operation fourth quarter of next year, adding 370,000 barrels per day capacity. We are trying to fix a broken system that we inherited from the Harper government so we can...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that is so blatantly false. Any intelligent person will know that this government killed Northern Gateway. Any intelligent person will know that the judge ruled that there was a quick way forward to resolve the issues. Any intelligent person will know that this government's Bill C-69 is having a chill on future investment and will lead to no more pipelines. Mr. Speaker, it's this government that has pursued a direct policy of phasing out the energy sector. Is the Minister pleased with how fast it's going, or will he stand up for the workers of the energy sector, repeal bills?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we stand with energy sector workers. When we extended EI benefits by $1.3 billion, it was that party and the leader that voted against that funding for laid-off workers. When we supported energy sector workers by moving forward on eliminating the orphaned oil wells and the impact on the environment, they voted against that funding, Mr. Speaker. We are moving forward building pipelines, and we will deliver on the commitments that we're making to energy sector workers.
Bravo.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, this morning the Governor of the Bank of Canada again confirmed there were dark clouds on the horizon for the Canadian economy. Lower investment, concern about the global economy, lower oil prices, ongoing steel and aluminum tariffs, all of which point to higher interest rates. At the very least, could the government start reining in its spending now that the Bank of Canada has issued this warning? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
First half of 2015, under Stephen Harper's Conservatives, Canada was in a technical recession. That's why we offered Canadians a plan for jobs and growth. And that's why Canadians took us up on that plan, and that plan is working. We have created 600,000 new jobs. We have lifted 300,000 Canadian children out of poverty. We have the lowest unemployment rate in 40 years and the fastest growth in the G7. Canadians will take liberal economic records over conservative economic rhetoric any day.
Order.
Order. Order. Order. L'Honorable.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. The fact is, exports are dropping, investment is dropping. They were elected by saying that they were going to run a modest deficit, and the fact is it's been huge, $20 billion. When are they going to tell Canadians the truth? Mr. Speaker, when we took office, we inherited a bad economic situation. Our plan is working. 300,000 Canadian children have been lifted out of poverty. 600,000 new jobs. The lowest unemployment rate in 40 years. And the highest economic growth in the G7, Mr. Speaker. We are going to keep working hard to create economic growth for tomorrow.
Order. I remind members not to interrupt when someone else is speaking, and I want to let the Honourable Member of Cypress Hills Grasslands know that even when he covers his mouth, I still hear him.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Neigette, Témiscouata, Les Basques. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals keep saying their relationship with Indigenous peoples is their top priority, but they're doing nothing to prove it. With respect to Trans Mountain, the Federal Court of Appeal was crystal clear. The consultation process was inadequate, and the government has to go back to the drawing board. That consultation is a serious responsibility that cannot be ignored like Harper did with Northern Gateway and like the Prime Minister is now doing with Trans Mountain. When is this government finally going to keep its promises to Indigenous peoples?
Mr. Speaker, we take very seriously our obligations for meaningful and two-way consultation with Indigenous communities. I have personally met with close to 40 Indigenous communities who are impacted by the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion. We are responding to the court's decision and making sure that moving forward we engage with them, listen to their concerns, and find accommodation where accommodation is possible, because that's the only way to move forward on the resource development projects such as pipelines. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Member for Rimouski, Neigette, Témiscouata, Les Basques. on the one hand, there's what the minister says. On the other hand, there's what the Prime Minister does. He says the Prime Minister calls himself a progressive feminist who cares about First Nations, but yesterday he contradicted all three of those things. His dismissiveness towards Chief Judy Wilson of the Neskonlith First Nation was deeply disrespectful and unacceptable. In a context of reconciliation, where consultation with First Nations is a sensitive issue, dismissing this chief so cavalierly only fans the flames. Will the Prime Minister admit his mistakes and publicly apologize for his inappropriate remarks? The Honourable Minister.
Pleased to be at the Assembly of First Nations Special Chiefs Assembly yesterday when the Prime Minister spoke. This is in fact the fourth time that our Prime Minister has spoken at that meeting, and there was a very good atmosphere in the room. I joined several other ministers in speaking at the Special Chiefs Assembly. We are building a renewed relationship based on respect and cooperation and partnership. We are moving forward and seeing real change for First Nations in this country.
The member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, this government doesn't seem to understand what free, prior and informed consent means. Indigenous leaders have been clear. The Trans Mountain expansion can't go ahead without the consent of impacted communities. And the courts have been clear. The Prime Minister failed to adequately consult with Indigenous people. How can he say he's consulting when he has already made up his mind? Perhaps the Prime Minister needs to look up the definition of prior in the Oxford Dictionary. I have one here for him.
A member for North Island, Powell River, I'm sure knows very well that members are not allowed to use props in the House. The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the Federal Court of Appeal has been very clear that in order to move forward on the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, we need to re-engage with Indigenous communities in our efforts to do a better job on Phase 3 consultation. That's exactly what we are focused on. We are putting our teams together. We're reaching out to Indigenous communities to engage them, listen to their concerns, and respond to their concerns. And we will make sure that we have the right process in place, that we are moving forward on this project by responding to the federal court's decision.
Well, member for North Island, Powell River.
Prior means before, Mr. Speaker. When Chief Judy Wilson asked the PM a question about Indigenous consultation, the Prime Minister not only failed to refer to her as Chief, but completely minimized her concerns. The British Columbian Chief said his response was an overtly sexist approach that attempted to normalize his dismissiveness. Then a male chief asked a very similar question, and the Prime Minister responded with respect and an apology. When will this feminist Prime Minister stand up in this House and apologize?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, prior to our government starting in 2015, the previous Prime Minister did not go to Special Chiefs Assemblies, did not go to general meetings of the Assembly of First Nations. Our Prime Minister goes to those meetings, he interacts, he accepts questions from the floor. We are building a new relationship where we are interacting in positive ways with First Nations leaders and communities, and we're proud of that work that we are doing together.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, it's funny to hear the Liberals talking about how great the economy is, and today we see the paltry results of their policies. They started by calling small business owners tax cheats, then they imposed a carbon tax, then they failed to resolve trade disputes around softwood lumber, aluminum, steel, chickpeas, and durum wheat. It seems the only thing the Prime Minister knows how to do is rack up huge deficits. When is he going to think about the economy instead of spending our children's savings? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, what remains clear is the Conservatives remain out of touch and have no real plan for the economy. What we saw under their failed economic plan was the lowest growth since the Great Depression. We saw checks being sent to millionaires, and we saw business investment decline. What we have done on this side of the House has created over half a million new jobs, and we continue to see wages grow, as well as Canadians are $2,000 better off under our plan than the Conservatives' failures.
The member for Battle First, Lloydminster.
Speaker, let's talk about out of touch. Out of touch. My constituents are sick and tired of having this Liberal government in their hands, in their pocketbooks. That's the reality of this. Debts and deficits are growing, interest and inflation rates are rising, billions in investments has been lost, and the energy crisis isn't even on the Prime Minister's radar. Canadians are paying and will be paying for his failed policies for generations. When will the Prime Minister acknowledge the economic reality and fix the damage he's created?
I think, Mr. Speaker, what the honourable member meant was we're fixing the damage that 10 years of the Harper Conservatives did to our economy. And that's precisely what we're delivering on. And we've done so by lifting hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty with the Canada Child Benefit, which they voted against. Our plan sees wages increases, more workers actually working than any other time. And we're seeing families $2,000 better off under our plan. So, Mr. Speaker, while they talk about their rhetoric, they have no credibility when it comes to the economy.
Allow me to remind honourable members that each side gets their turn, and they just have to wait, and their side gets their turn again. So just calm down a little, please, colleagues. The member for Calgary-Midnapore has the floor now.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has raised taxes on businesses, on individuals, and on almost everything we've purchased. Yet his promised infrastructure spending is non-existent, and this year's deficit is more than triple what the Prime Minister promised it would be. Oil prices are bottoming out, businesses are leaving Canada, and more people are out of work, while the Prime Minister pledges millions to celebrities over Twitter. When will the Prime Minister stop wasting taxpayer dollars and treat Canadians with the respect they deserve?
Minister of Infrastructure and Community.
Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague to allow me to talk about our historic infrastructure plan, Mr. Speaker, in Canada. $180 billion, Mr. Speaker, to invest in communities, to invest in public transit in Alberta, to invest in green technologies in Ontario, to invest in mass transit in Montreal, to invest in rural community, Mr. Speaker, to invest in Nunavik in the Northwest Territories. Everywhere we invest, Mr. Speaker, we improve the lives of Canadians. Canadians who are watching at home understand that they want modern, resilient, and green infrastructure. That's what we're going to deliver across Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Mr. Speaker, the Ontario manufacturing sector is losing jobs by the day. Alberta dropped from 14th to 43rd in global investment rankings. The central bank froze its rate. The loonie is at an 18-month low. Investment capital is fleeing. We've been warning the government about this for years. Instead, they've ignored all advice and racked up huge deficit. Why will the Prime Minister continue to do nothing but spend instead of preparing for this economic downturn?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we are investing in all various sectors of the economy across Canada. What is clear, Mr. Speaker, is that Conservatives have no plan for the economy, but we do, and it's working. We've created over 500,000 full-time jobs since taking office in October 2015. Our unemployment rate, Mr. Speaker, remains at a 40-year low, but we know there's more work to do, Mr. Speaker. We're continuing to invest in Canadians and in all sectors as we grow a middle class and support people working hard to join it. Bravo.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
We're working hard to stay in it. The Prime Minister promised Canadians that his policies would attract advanced manufacturing and the jobs of the future. He failed. Auto companies will be making once-in-a-generation investments in building electric and autonomous cars, the cars of the future, just not in Canada. Oshawa's economy needs leadership. Investors can't operate businesses under this uncertainty. So today, I ask again, will the Prime Minister table his plan for the affected Oshawa workers before Christmas?
Hear, hear.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, obviously we're disappointed with the decision that GM took to close, to not have scheduled production for its Ottawa plant. Of course, our hearts go out to GM families and people in the ecosystem. But, Mr. Speaker, we are investing in the auto economy in Ontario in a variety of different ways. We have the results to prove it, Mr. Speaker, attracting billions of dollars in investment from the private sector for the roughly $400 million that we have put in as a government. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to invest in the auto economy across Canada, but in particular in Ontario.
The honourable member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government has raised taxes on entrepreneurs, on hiring employees through payroll taxes, and they're imposing a carbon tax. Tariffs and excessive regulation are hurting investment in the resource sector in the West, and GM and companies like Nelson Industrial and Pickering, Mr. Speaker. On top of this, the Liberals are also running large structural deficits. So instead of just hearts going out, Mr. Speaker, will the government commit to an action plan on Canadian competitiveness by accelerating duty relief, removing hardball tariffs, and eliminating the dreadful C-69 bill? Because all of these measures are stopping jobs.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we've actually lowered taxes for small businesses. We've made investments in businesses across all sectors with the accelerated investment incentive. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are so desperate to paint this picture, but the problem is the facts don't lie. We've created more than 500,000 new full-time jobs. A typical Canadian family is $2,000 better off than under the Conservatives' plan. And Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry that the Conservatives can't handle it, but they had no plan and they still have no plan.
The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, with Bill C-76, Liberals quietly doubled the threshold at which ridings are audited. In a news report out today, we learned that then Liberal MP from Brampton East raised over $600,000 at one single event. And that's curious because that's 6 times the amount, the legal amount, to run an election in Brampton East. From the beginning, the only Prime Minister ever convicted of breaking ethics laws has claims he's known nothing of the RCMP or ethics investigations into this MP. Is that because he sees nothing troubling with an MP being tailed by the cops, or is it because the money was just too good?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I think the member likes being reminded that when it comes to the RCMP works independently of the government. The member started off with Bill C-76. We look forward to seeing C-76 passed so that we can strengthen the rules for elections. We want to see more Canadians working. That's what the NDP used to say, but something happens to them when they're in this House where they forget that we're here to serve Canadians. More Canadians working and voting is better for democracy, and we will continue to strengthen our democratic institutions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
2 weeks ago, the finance minister stated that Trans Mountain was earning money, $200 million annualized. This week, CDEV reported the scandalous truth. Canadians will be losing over $50 million this year alone on Trans Mountain. That's in addition to $4.5 billion for acquisition, quite twice the value, and there's also more than $10 billion for estimated construction costs. Now, Liberals should stop throwing away money on Trans Mountain like drunken sailors. When will the finance minister come clean on these losses to Canadians?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Trans Mountain Project is an investment in Canada's future. With 99% of energy exports going to the U.S., we know that we have to diversify our markets, and in order to create good quality jobs for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we're moving forward in the right way. We're protecting the environment and ensuring that we are engaging with meaningful consultation with Indigenous communities.
The honourable member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, Canadian authorities have just announced the arrest of Meng Wanzhou, Chinese telecom Huawei's chief financial officer. She's accused of attempting to violate the U.S. embargo on Iran. The director of CSIS gave the government a clear warning about the growing threat of state-sponsored espionage. When is the Prime Minister going to take steps to banish Huawei from Canada? The Honourable Minister, Parliamentary Secretary, rather.
investment that will grow our economy and create good middle-class jobs. When it comes to telecommunication services, we've promised Canadians we would improve quality, coverage, and price for their services. 5G is an emerging technology that's part of that picture, Mr. Speaker. But when it comes to Huawei's participation in that system, we will rely on our intelligence services to provide us with the kind of advice that they have traditionally given us. Mr. Speaker, we will never, ever compromise our national security.
The honourable member for Charlebourg au Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I think the parliamentary secretary is using some old lines because the situation is fast evolving. Most of our Five Eyes allies have already cracked down on Huawei, and British Telecom has confirmed it will be removing Huawei equipment from parts of its 5G network, and the head of MI6 has questioned the company about its activities. Our economic security and defense interests are at risk. When is Huawei going to be banished from Canada? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we will never compromise national security, and we will base our decision precisely on the expert opinion of our domestic experts. And I'd like to remind the member that if he wants more direct information, perhaps he should ask his leader, because there's a direct link to that company there.
Every day we get more reasons to ban Huawei from our 5G network. Yesterday it was a warning from the head of CSIS. Today it is the CFO of the company being arrested in Vancouver for allegedly violating sanctions on Iran. Huawei will be forced to spy on Canadians for the Communist Chinese government. Will the Liberals finally commit to securing our next generation network and ban Huawei?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we will never compromise our national security, period. Mr. Speaker, we will rely on our experts, our national security experts, in making a final decision. And I can assure this House, Mr. Speaker, that that decision will be one that reflects Canada's national security interests. Once again, as I just said in French, if the honourable member would like more direct information, perhaps he should ask his own leader, because they seem to have, through Jake Enright, a direct contact in Huawei.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola. Order.
Non-answers, Mr. Speaker. The CFO of this communist Chinese government-controlled company is suspected to have violated sanctions on Iran. This isn't an organization we want involved in our communication network. Our allies say act. Our security officials say act. Yet this government refuses to do anything. Now, why is the government refusing to stand with our allies and ban Huawei from our 5G network? Why?
The Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, as I have said, we will never compromise our national security. Mr. Speaker, we know that 5G is an important technology that will allow us as a country moving forward to provide better coverage, better service, and better quality to our Canadian citizens. Mr. Speaker, we all know how important connectivity is to the economy and to the social life of this country. That being said, Mr. Speaker, we will trust the opinion of our national security experts when it comes to Huawei's participation in that system, but no decision will be made, Mr. Speaker, that compromises our security.
Honourable member for Churchill, Kiewit-Nookasky.
Mr. Speaker, once again this week we heard of an incident where a medical patient from a northern Manitoba First Nation received second-class treatment. Kimberly Scott, an elder from Bloodvein, was in Winnipeg for necessary care. She was put in a hotel with bed bugs, and when her daughter asked for them to be moved, she was told by medical services to sit there and wait. Let's be clear, health care is a treaty right. It's also a human right. So my question is this government policy? And if not, how many more Indigenous patients need to be treated as second-class citizens before the Liberals act?
Wow. The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services.
I thank the member opposite for raising this issue. The respect and recognition that Indigenous patients, as all Canadians, should expect to be treated in our healthcare systems is a matter that's of importance to all of us. We work, of course, with the provinces and territories on the delivery of healthcare. Just today, I met with the Canadian Medical Association to speak to them about cultural safety and how we can all work together to do better to make sure that health care is received in a proper way.
For Timmins, James Bay.
The term need for urgent action, what does that mean when talking about children at Grassy Narrows with seizures, physical impairments, hearing and sight loss, children who can't remember basic math questions because they've been poisoned, and yet the community continues to struggle with underfunded education, shortages of special ed, unable to hire qualified teachers, and an outstanding need for a full assessment for every single child. Will the minister agree that urgency means action now and end the underfunded education at Grassy Narrows and insist on a full assessment for every single child in that community?
Minister of Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, urgency means action now, and it means actions we've already taken. We have made sure that there are special education funds for all students in that community, and I've already shown the member the numbers in terms of how much we have invested in special education in that community. I have already made a commitment to that community the first time I met with the previous chief to say that we will go forward with the new health facility. We've now received the feasibility plan. I met with the new chief this week, and we are moving forward on a new health centre.
Honourable member for Humber River, Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, 29 years ago today, our country experienced the most horrifying act of gender-based violence in our history. 14 young women were murdered in a mass shooting at l'École Polytechnique de Montréal, simply because they were women. In the past year, the Me Too and the Time's Up movement has shone unprecedented light on the prevalence of gender-based violence. Could the Minister for the Status of Women please tell this House how our government is responding to the courageous voices of the women's movement?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the only way to respond to courage is with courageous conversations and bold action. As my honourable colleague from Humber River Black Creek demonstrates each and every day, the best way to honour the stories of the 14 young women Canada lost 29 years ago is to end gender-based violence, to show intolerance to misogyny, and to work to advance an economy where everyone benefits. It's why we've invested in a gender-based violence strategy that supports the women's movement, Mr. Speaker. Communities across Canada mourn with the people.
The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
15 days after Torstar Corporation Chair John Hondrick published an October 10th commentary appealing for federal subsidies, a $355,000 sole source contract was awarded to pay Toronto Star reporters to attend and report on the Commons Finance and Senate banking committees. Liberals did this despite the fact that committee meetings are public and are monitored by 43 accredited news organizations on Parliament Hill. Did the Prime Minister pay the Toronto Star for favourable content as we head into an election year?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, a bankrupt press is not a free press. A bankrupt press is not an independent press, and a bankrupt press is not a press at all, Mr. Speaker. And they don't want to hear from professional journalism, and I don't know what they have against tough questions, Mr. Speaker. In this House of the House, we're supporting professional journalism. We're ready to take the tough questions, and we do it in a way that the press is independent and free, as it should be.
Honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
And so it begins. The procurement ombudsman did absolutely the right thing by cancelling the contract after a complaint was filed by Blacklocks. And just as predicted, the Liberals are placing the journalistic integrity of the parliamentary press gallery at stake by putting reporters in a position of not biting the Liberal hand that feeds them. If you write content that agrees with the Liberals, you get funding. But be critical of the Liberals, tough luck. How far will this Prime Minister go to try to influence the media before the next election?
Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Wow, Mr. Speaker. So professional journalism is part of our democracy. It's something extremely important to our society, Mr. Speaker. It's one of the pillars of our democracy. Now, after
Order. We need to hear from both sides. Order, and one at a time. Some people get loud, and we prefer not, but let's let one side go at a time at least. The Honourable Minister of Heritage.
As I was saying, professional journalism is one of the pillars of democracy, Mr. Speaker. Now, after attacking professional journalism, what other pillar of our democracy are they going to attack?
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Order, please. Mr. Speaker, it's unbelievable to hear this from the Minister of Heritage. The Liberals are taking money from the regions, and transferring it to the Infrastructure Bank, which has become a monster of their own making. $11 million spent to date and no new projects. Our country is no longer competitive, and this Liberal government has just found a new toy to attract foreign investors, the Infrastructure Bank. It backs the risk for foreign developers by being generous with Canadians' money. Another trick that doesn't work. When will this government stop this waste and shut down the Infrastructure Bank? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. Mr. Speaker, I can guarantee to my colleague that the Infrastructure Bank will be open as long as we're in government. Mr. Speaker, I would invite the member to go and speak to the people of Montreal who have seen the Infrastructure Bank invest more than $1 billion in public transit that will change the lives of Montrealers all over the city. My colleague understands that we have put forward an historic plan with billions of dollars in investment. The Infrastructure Bank will do more and faster for the Canadians. It is one more tool that we will be able to use to improve the lives of Canadians. And I would invite him to speak to people in Montreal. The Honourable Member of... I would ask the member Beauport, Côte de Beaupré, Ile d'Orléans to stop heckling and shouting.
But I guess the bank's got 10 more months left to go, Mr. Speaker. In order to fund the Canada Infrastructure Bank, $5 billion was taken from public transit, $5 billion was taken from trade and transportation, and $5 billion was taken from green infrastructure. That's $15 billion no longer going to local communities to create jobs and growth, but instead sitting in a made-up bank. The minister wants to talk about using taxpayer money to leverage private investment, but it's his government policies that are making Canada less attractive to private investment. When will the Liberals shut this bank down and start getting infrastructure projects built?
The Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we're very proud of the Infrastructure Bank, Mr. Speaker. This is another tool in our toolbox to do more. But, Mr. Speaker, let me remind the member what we've done for this province of Alberta. We're investing more than $8.5 billion in infrastructure in Alberta, infrastructure that will help the people in Alberta. We're investing in mass transit. We're investing in green infrastructure. We're investing in communities across the country. Mr. Speaker, Canadians who are watching us at home know better. They know that they want modern, resilient, and green infrastructure. They know that infrastructure is the best way to attract investment and talent in this country. That's what we're going to do.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, when the Minister of Official Languages met Minister Mulroney, it appears that she didn't make any commitment to funding the Ontario French Language University. If the Liberals are willing to support Franco-Ontarians as much as they claim they are, the Minister should communicate directly with the Ontario government, as Ms. Mulroney has requested. If the real priority of the Minister is to help Franco-Ontarians and not to score political points on their backs, what is she waiting for to make a concrete offer of funding for the Ontario French Language University? The Honourable Minister of Official Languages. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to clarify the facts for my colleague, who is an ally of official languages. First of all, I did have an opportunity to speak to Ms. Mulroney, and when I spoke to her about the importance of the university project. Second, I had also an opportunity to say that we are willing to sit down at the table and negotiate with the Ontario government because we believe in these kinds of projects. And the government is leaving money on the table because it's not a priority for them. But we will always stand up for Franco-Ontarians. We will also always work for good projects. And I will have an opportunity to say this again. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday at the UPA Congress, producers clearly expressed their frustration. Producers believed the Liberal government's nice words, resolving the issue of diafiltered milk, no concessions on Class 7, no breaches under the USMCA, and no sacrifices at the expense of our food sovereignty. Mr. Speaker, these were all broken promises. Today, producers throughout Quebec feel betrayed by the Liberal government. How can the agriculture producers in Quebec still trust this government to defend their interests?
Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm my honourable colleague is concerned, but our government has defended the supply management system against strong attempts by the American government to demolish it. We know that the dairy, poultry and egg farmers provide the highest quality for Canadians at reasonable price and support rural communities. We are committed to fully and fairly supporting our agricultural sector and the supply management sector. We have and will continue to support agriculture in this country, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, opposition members of the Ethics Committee today unanimously supported a motion to call the Clerk of the Privy Council to discuss accumulating questions about the former Liberal member for Brampton East. Questions involving gambling, wiretaps, money laundering, terrorist funding, outside employment, the embarrassing India trip, and RCMP investigation. Unfortunately, the Liberal majority on committee voted to defeat our motion. Mr. Speaker, what are the Liberals hiding from Canadians?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows well that committees are independent. That being said, I want to congratulate this particular committee for the important work they have accomplished, notably in regards to
Order. Wednesday was yesterday. Order. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, so I want to congratulate this particular committee for the important work they have accomplished, notably in regard to their study on Cambridge Analytica. Their work has been reported around the world, and last week in London, UK, committee members represented this House of Commons proudly. I do find it unfortunate that, as is their habit, Conservatives are once again trying to politicize committees of this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Thornhill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, ethical lapses have become the hallmark of this government. They seem determined now, in their final year in office, to set a new record in the number of simultaneous police investigations into Liberal member activities. With regard to the most recent investigation, involving the member for Brampton East, the Minister of Economic Development, and a suspect real estate deal, can the Prime Minister confirm whether law enforcement has been in touch with his or the Minister's office?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister has directly answered this question. Mr. Speaker, I have reminded all members that the RCMP works independently from government. And Mr. Speaker, there is an easy way for Canadians to see whether the Conservatives are asking real questions or if they're simply hiding behind parliamentary privilege to make baseless accusations and smear a minister. And all they have to do is check whether the members opposite will repeat the same comments they make in this House outside of the House of Commons. In fact, Mr. Speaker, this point is made even clearer when one sees that the leader of the official opposition has indeed retracted the comments he made outside this House.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Order, please. Mr. Speaker, whether the Liberals like it or not, if we hadn't ever asked any touchy questions, the sponsorship scandal would never have come to light. It's time the Liberals accepted responsibility, Mr. Speaker. The close ties between Liberal ministers and a property developer in Brampton East are a fact. All these fine folks were on the same trip to India on the taxpayers' dime, and nobody even invited them, apparently. Why are the Liberals taking Canadians for fools? And who invited this property developer on the Prime Minister's trip to India? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, as they know, the Minister has responded directly to that question, did so yesterday. We know we have thanked all the committee members for their work. And, Mr. Speaker, it's easy for Canadians to know whether or not Conservatives are asking truthful questions or not, or whether they're hiding behind their parliamentary privilege. If they are making unfounded accusations, the Canadians can simply check and see if the Conservatives will repeat those allegations outside the House.
Hamilton East. Order. Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, something I hear in my riding is that releasing members and veterans
are concerned about the length of time that it takes to get a decision on an application for disability benefits. And so it was reported that Veterans Affairs might be looking to change the deadlines for those benefits. Now, I'm proud to talk to veterans about all this government has done to start cleaning up the mess left by the previous Conservative government. But can the minister inform the House what steps he is taking to ensure that veterans and their families receive timely decisions?
Great question. Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the member for Hamilton Mountain, Stony Creek. We will not change the deadlines for applications. Instead, we're investing in delivering faster, quality decisions for veterans. With our new programs and a new culture of yes on disability decisions, more veterans than ever are coming forward to get the help they need. We've invested $42.8 million. We hired more decision makers, and yesterday we rolled out an online wait time tool to give veterans a better sense of how long applications for their conditions are taking. This is something veterans has asked for. Mr. Speaker, we are listening and we are acting. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, there's only 14 weeks left in this Parliament, yet the government continues to overpromise and underdeliver. How can we trust the Prime Minister's new commitments at AFN this week while his previous promises go unfulfilled? Addition to reserve buried in a budget bill with no consultation. Language Act nowhere to be seen. Child Welfare Act, why the delay? Can the Minister tell us if any of this promised legislation will be law before this Parliament rises?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member opposite very much for the question. She asked about several things. I'll talk about the additions to reserve that was part of our budget implementation bill. This is a really important piece of legislation, and people have been asking this from First Nations for 40 years. Wow. Finally, this week I was able to tell chiefs it's going to be faster to get additions to reserve. Thanks to new pieces of legislation, this is good news, and it will add to economic prosperity.
Honourable Member for Hamilton Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday this week, the Ontario Superior Court gave the go-ahead for lawsuits to be filed against the former owner of bankrupt Sears Canada, Eddie Lampert, and as well as the former directors. This will allow pensioners and unsecured creditors to recover at least a portion of their money. The sad part of all this, if the Liberals would simply change the laws, then pensioners could have at least been spared the costly process to recover their hard-earned pensions. When will the Liberals take action and change the laws to protect Canadian workers and retirees from pension theft?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, our heart goes out to the Sears pensioners, as we have said on a number of occasions in this House. In Budget 2018, Mr. Speaker, we made a commitment to take a whole-of-government, evidence-based approach to that question. And the newly named minister is proceeding along those lines, as are other departments and ministries within this government. Mr. Speaker, we will move forward with those consultations and we will come forward with a plan. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, under our government's plan, the Canadian economy is amongst the strongest in the G7. Unemployment is at its lowest level in 40 years. Canadians have created over 500,000 full-time jobs. By this time next year, the average Canadian family of four will have $2,000 more in their pocket each year than under the Conservatives. In the fall economic statement, the Minister of Finance announced new measures to strengthen our competitiveness, to help create jobs and grow our economy for today and the future. Can the Parliamentary Secretary tell the House how these changes will help Canadians?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you to the member from Vaughan Woodbridge for the question and for his work on the Finance Committee. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have no plan for the economy. We have a plan and it is working. We've lowered taxes for 9 million middle-class Canadians and put more money in the pocket of 9 out of 10 families with the Canada Child Benefit. In the fall economic statement, we took another step to support long-term economic growth. We're supporting new business investments in Canada to help businesses grow and create new jobs for Canadians across the country.
The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lillet, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, 1 hour ago in my native town of La Pocatière, the best employees in the world from Bombardier Transport demonstrated peacefully to show that they have the capacity, expertise, passion and determination that are necessary to build Via Rail's new fleet. But the Minister of Transport is already washing its hands of this. There has just been an agreement signed with Donald Trump that is allowing the U.S. to have these cars built in the United States. Why are those cars going to the United States rather than to Canada? Mr. Speaker, I already explained to my colleague a few days ago that this project is managed by a federal crown corporation called Via Rail. They are the ones who are responsible for replacing the rail fleet for the Quebec-Windsor corridor. We obviously have to respect international rules under which we have free trade agreements with Europe, and we cannot provide preferential treatment to Canadian companies. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, this seems to be the only government not preferring its own business. While First Ministers are meeting in Montreal to discuss the new NAFTA, Quebec is still waiting for a clear commitment from the Prime Minister for dairy producers. 2 months ago, the House unanimously called on the government to fully compensate supply-managed producers for the 3 agreements that were signed on their backs. 2 months. Will the government take the opportunity at the First Minister's meeting to commit once and for all to fully compensating supply-managed producers who were betrayed under the last 3 agreements?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate my honourable colleague's question, but the Prime Minister has been quite clear. The Minister of Foreign Affairs have been quite clear. Most Cabinet Ministers have been quite clear. We're going to fully and fairly support our dairy sector and the supply management system. We have and will continue to make sure we support our agricultural sector. My honourable colleague is well aware due to the negotiations and before the negotiations, the American government clearly stated their intention was to destroy the supply management system. We made sure that did not happen.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, next week at the meeting in Marrakesh, the government will be discussing the UN Global Compact on migration. But the issue of migrants isn't just a federal issue. In Quebec, we welcome, integrate, and we also select. The Prime Minister cannot alone decide and then leave it up to the provinces to deal with the consequences of his decisions or his tweets. Will he use the First Minister's meeting to present the compact and commit to not signing it until he has their consent? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada fully supports the compact that will play an important role globally in order to ensure that there is regular and safe migration. We have consulted each province throughout the country over the past 2 years, and we have consulted with experts, Canadians, academics. No one whom we consulted said that they were concerned about the compact. We know that immigration plays an important role in Canada's economy, and we also know that it's important to be at the international table for these discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday I pointed out in my statement that last week the Prime Minister was wrong in his justification for barring the government of Nunavut from becoming a party to the 2 Dene treaties. Every modern land claims agreement in Canada's Northern Territories has involved 3 parties: the Indigenous group, Canada, and the government of the territory where the agreement is to operate. For numerous legal and constitutional reasons, these treaties cannot be implemented without the consent of the government of Nunavut. When will Canada stop playing the colonial master, do the right thing, and invite them to the table as a party and signatory to these treaties?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, Canada remains committed to advancing reconciliation with Indigenous peoples through the conclusion of modern treaties. The government of Nunavut has been participating in negotiations and its concerns are being addressed. The government of Nunavut has always been welcome to sign these treaties as part of Canada, as they have done so previously. We've been negotiating these treaties for almost 20 years and are hopeful that the Athabasca Denisuline and the Gotine Dene modern treaties will be concluded in the very near future.
Now, the Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope, I believe, has a usual Thursday question.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Government House Leader if she could share with the House what the remainder of the week looks like in terms of government business, and could also tell us what's on the agenda for next week.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker. This afternoon, we will begin debate on the Senate amendments to Bill C-57, the Sustainable Development Bill. Tomorrow morning, we will start debate at report stage and third reading stage of Bill C-83, the administrative segregation legislation. Following question period, we will debate the Senate amendments to Bill C-21, the Customs Act. La semaine prochaine sera dédiée à
Next week will be devoted to the study and consideration of various government bills. I'd also like to remind all members that pursuant to an order adopted this morning, Take Note debate will take place Monday evening at the normal time of adjournment. The debate will deal with the opioid crisis in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.